Going to dive into some serious matters now, as I refer to it on the radio, some heavy breakfast here on the wall. There's a new documentary film you and I should discover, make some time to see. It's called The Girl Who Cannot Speak. My guest right now is Laura Pellegrini. She is a co-director, producer of this project. Laura, welcome to the wall. Please tell me a little bit about yourself. Show me some credentials before we start this conversation. Tell me about your work in the past.
Thank you, Sergio, for having me on this show.
You bet.
I started a production company with my directing partner extraordinaire, Stefano DeFrey, about 4 or 5 years ago. And we started making, short films that got into the Cannes Film Festival and other regional festivals throughout the U.S. And then in 2017, very earlier on in the year, we wanted to do a project about this. We knew very early on that it was something important to document. So the research for this film was very intensive. I had worked at a women's shelter in White Plains earlier in my youth. And a lot of that experience kind of lent itself to knowing what stories to pull for the documentary. So when the Harvey Weinstein scandal hit in October of that year, it only incentivized us further to dive full on into the project.
The Girl Who Cannot Speak is a documentary film. I understand follows 5 women, their true stories of sex abuse. Who are these women? Give me a real quick explanation. Are they trafficked? Are they enslaved?
Yeah, these are 4 women who we met at the women's shelter and were chosen very carefully for the documentary because of their experiences in their youth or in their teen years. So these are women who were victimized from a very, very young age, either by family members or coworkers. So the 4 women that you see in the film were all victims of that. And then we also have a minor in the film who doesn't speak. And she serves as a through line for all of these women in terms of, feeling that shame and feeling that silence to not
She doesn't speak because you don't do an interview with a child, or physically
we did do an interview with her. We did. But there was a very delicate process, a very delicate, line that we had to tread when we were developing, when we were going into the process of interviewing these women and trying to really mine for more personal things. There was an agreement that Stefano and I had early on that we didn't want to overstep our boundaries with a minor because at some point it feels a bit voyeuristic and it feels a bit too personal. Yeah. So she did share things. She did get to that point where she did, but we decided not to include it on screen. And, if anything, it served as a through line for the film. So it worked out.
Producer and filmmaker Laura Pellegrini, my guest on the wall. Documentary is called The Girl Who Cannot Speak. The website's pretty easy to remember. Same thing, thegirlwhocannot.speak.com if you'd like to find more information. These 5 women who you focused on in this documentary are all victims of sexual abuse. Of course, they're all women now. They're older, but you said most of the abuse began when they were children. They were small, right? All of them?
Yes. One of them talks about her experiences with her modeling career, which happened in her early teen years. But the other 3 women who speak up about their abuse stories all happened when they were children. Correct.
What is the takeaway? What did you learn?
I learned just how hard it is to be courageous. I think it's one thing in our society to say, you need to speak up, you need to tell your story, you need to get it out there. And on paper, that's very well and good. But it took so much for these women to share what happened because of all the years that they were oppressed and they couldn't say anything and they felt completely powerless. Why
were they limited? Why could they not speak? What was the reason?
I think there was a sense of internal shame, right? There's a sense of one's own shame that they feel imprisoned by, but also because the abuse extends to other people. It extends to other family members. So I remember even one woman telling us, one of the survivors told us that she was terrified of telling her dad because she was scared of how her dad would react to someone in the family having done that.
Oh my Lord.
For all these years, she couldn't say anything. She was imprisoned by her own shame, and she was imprisoned by her own embarrassment and fear for her dad. And that actually came out during her interview.
Did you ask if she ever did tell her dad?
She never wound up telling her dad, and it took her years. It took her years even to tell her young kids, who only just found out recently. So
when I'm sure, right. Having children and knowing what life is like, I'm sure that motivated her to share this for their protection. The documentary is called "The Girl Who Cannot Speak." Remember that name, thegirlwhocannot.speak.com is the website. My guest on the wall is filmmaker Laura Pellegrini. Who needs to see your documentary, Laura?
Everyone. It extends to all genders. Women and men alike are both. They share in the experience of 1 in 4 women and 1 out of 6 men are sexually abused in their lifetime. So it extends to all genders and all people from all different walks of life. Stefano and I feel very strongly that everyone should see it.
And it's usually a family member or a friend or somebody close to the family.
Yes.
That's the overwhelming majority of the individuals who inflict that pain and that abuse.
Absolutely.
Something to remember. Yeah. Laura, thank you. Please keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.